Jai Shri Krishna, Namaste, and welcome to Chitty Media's Current Affairs Show. Today I'll be discussing a very important topic, something that's come to light recently since the Leicester events, with our very own in-house Pandit Satish Sharma ji. Pandit ji, welcome.
Ramji, Namaskar, Jai Shri Ram to you,
Jai Shri
and
Ram, Jai Shri Krishna.
Shubh Deepavali greetings.
Yes.
May this new year shower everybody with prosperity, good health, lots and lots of Pran Shakti and good fortune.
Thank you very much for those wishes. I'm sure our audience will absorb them very well. Pandit ji, tonight I want to discuss quite an important topic with you. With the recent events happening in Leicester, normally the Hindu community here in England are very hunky-dory. We're getting on with work. We're getting on, nose to the grindstone, not really paying much attention to the world around us. We're in our own little bubbles. But recently with Leicester, many Hindus have been forced to wake up to what's going on. It's for the first time after decades of settling here. Many have had to encounter the police. They've had to encounter media, local politicians, academia. And what we're realizing with many institutions is we're seeing a lot of Hinduphobia. I'd like to delve a little deeper with that tonight with you and your insights, because you are so full of wisdom, and you personally have, as a Hindu leader here, you've had to interact with many of these institutions. And I was wondering if you could give us some insight, please.
Well, the scenario that you've painted is so true. If I can just wind back a little bit, the vast majority of our community in this country, we interact with the average Brit, the average English person, Welsh person, Scots person, and so on. And very rarely do we have a problem there. There is an element of racism, an element of colonialism, and that's to be expected from a nation which colonized most of the civilized world. And so that's okay, but it's not particularly bad, and it's diminishing dramatically. On the other hand, most of our community, we very rarely have an opportunity to exchange with the institutions of state, the establishment as it's called. You're right. And what Leicester has done is it's brought us into contact with all of those. It's almost like a train crash. We have impacted into the police. We have hit the politicians and the local authorities. So it's very much worth stepping back for a moment and just reviewing where we actually are. We had an assumption that equality legislation was applicable to everybody, that the political parties genuinely looked on everyone from a point of view of an equal playing field, equality in human rights, equality in terms of opportunity, and all of those things are now being reconsidered on the basis of first-hand experience. You've mentioned political institutions as well in your introduction, and that's something I'd like to pick up on, because we are really being educated very, very quickly on the reality of the British Hindu community and the political institutions, bearing in mind the turmoil in Parliament, the possibility, there's certainly talk of elections, although I think it's a bit remote, but it's about time we considered what have we learned. Now, in Leicester, we have had a Labour Party for a long period of time. Many of our local Hindus have engaged with the Labour Party, and many of them have become councillors and done work for the local community at a local level. Most of that is the normal day-to-day work, planning applications, school, and those sorts of things. And that's absolutely fine. That's part and parcel of being a citizen in a particular city and engaging and interacting with the local affairs. That's all great. The Leicester scenario, though, has really given us a chance to have a look at what happens at levels above that. And this is something that I think we can probably disclose a few recent developments, which I think are worth reflecting upon. As you know, an inquiry was announced at a local level. So the local Lord Mayor of Leicester, Sir Peter Soulsby, he announced that he would be initiating an independent inquiry. Now, we have a Labour administration, Labour MPs, Labour councillors, Labour police commissioners, all of those sorts of things are very much Labour, Labour, Labour. And so if you have a look at the demographics of the area, you have a look at who is influential in determining policy, that becomes very relevant to this independent inquiry. So it's absolutely vital that the independent inquiry is blind to political influences, is blind to demographic, is blind to religious influences, etc. It must be independent. Also, it must look at facts, and it must look at the local picture, because really it's to do with the safety or criminality of people in that locality. And that's what we had expected as Hindus. So the first alarm bell that sort of really struck a bell was when Peter Soulsby announced that he had determined that there were external forces involved, that Hindutva elements were responsible, if only partly. And this was a surprise because, as you know, the inquiry hadn't even been commenced, and yet already elements were being declared. He was also seen on video recordings which were publicized, meeting individuals from only one community. And that also compromises the degree of independence that this inquiry will have.
Yes.
But what I really wanted to add to the conversation is that the Hindu and Jain communities reached out to Peter Soulsby last week, on Friday of last week, and invited him to one of the Hindu temples to discuss his statement that Hindutva forces were at play here, and to find out whether he had any evidence to support that. The meeting took place at one of the temples, and when the questions were put to him, he had no evidence to support it. And so that's the first alarm bell, that an assertion has been made which makes a comment about one particular group to their detriment without evidence. The second question was that if he had no evidence, would he be willing to retract his statement? Because it taints the inquiry, and so it's a reasonable request. If you have no evidence and you have tainted the inquiry, and it has an adverse effect on one particular community, and it has a beneficial effect on another particular community, then that is a reasonable request to retract that statement. He flatly refused. He said no, he wouldn't.
Goodness.
And so the next question was, why not? Why would he not retract that statement and restore an element of balance in the inquiry? And his statement was that it would send the wrong message. And immediately the question was, send the wrong message to who?
Yes.
All right. And somebody in the audience did ask, would it send the wrong message to the Muslim community? And the response was yes. And in fact, it was further expanded upon to indicate that it would offend that particular community. And so this really needs to be reflected upon.
Yes.
So
he seems to be tiptoeing around. I mean, not just him, the whole of the British establishment are tiptoeing around a certain community. And that is frightening, that they are so scared, because they're meant to be looking out for everyone equally and impartially.
Well, this is really at the heart of it, because it begs the question, a Lord Mayor who is elected to look after the interests of the whole community, bound by the Nolan principles, he's obliged to be equal-minded and equal-handed and maintain integrity and independence. All of those things are fundamental to the Nolan principles. And yet he is openly saying, I have no evidence upon which to base a remark that I have made which harms your community and paints you in a negative light. I'm not willing to withdraw that statement. And it's okay for me to not offend one community and be perfectly content in offending another community without justification. So this is institutionalized anti-Hinduism. This is institutionalized Hinduphobia. The Lord Mayor's office, it reflects the mouthpiece of an institution. And so when a person acts to the detriment of one religious community in such a manner, this, I would say, is approaching, if not qualifying for the definition of a hate crime. This is institutionalized discrimination against a religious minority. And I think this is worthy of further exploration. So this is something that is the beginning of a journey, Saloniji. And I'm looking forward to the response that the Hindu community is going to give to Sir Peter Soulsby. And I'm hoping that this will also be picked up at a national level. You will recall before the last general election, 6 Labour councillors in Leicester made a statement that the Labour Party had become institutionally toxic for Hindus. And, it'd be good to know whether this is still the case. Is the Labour Party as a whole still toxically inclined against Hindu interests? Is the Labour Party Hinduphobic and anti-Hindu? There is a very strong case for establishing that it's anti-Indian, as in terms of anti-India, the nation. But if it is institutionally anti-Hindu, i.e. Hinduphobic, then that damages the relationship it has with the British Hindu community. And this needs to be addressed with a sense of urgency. So this is what I wanted to share with you as an update to our understanding of Hinduphobia in this country.
Yes, no, it is frightening. I mean, you've addressed one angle of Hinduphobia in politics, because we have seen, in recent years how Labour have, with their certain rhetoric and comments, be it Kashmir, Modi ji, Hindus, that they've never really been friends of Hindus anymore. And this is now sealing it when you have, like Mayor Soulsby coming out with comments like that. It's quite worrying, because you feel then who are they going to be answerable to, because they are the establishment. And what have you found with the police, for example, in this? So that's politics. We've got police, we've got academia, we've got media. It's like all the legs that hold a society together.
One by one.
Yes.
One by one. We're going to be learning more of these, of the truth of all of these relationships over the coming weeks. With regard to the police, there haven't been any further developments. They're still progressing with analysing the video footage, and will hopefully be bringing charges. The CPS will hopefully be prosecuting, etc., irrespective of which community criminality has emerged from. And so that's ongoing. It was interesting to note, by the way, that there is an academic scholar in the university there in Leicester who published an article in which he too declared that it was the presence of Hindutva forces which had initiated this. And the strange thing is that he's the head of the Department of Criminology, and so with evidence, Chris Allen, I think his name was, you'd be expecting him to be concerned with the whole issue of perhaps evidence. What sort of a criminologist ignores evidence? Sherlock Holmes would be deeply, deeply disturbed.
The frightening thing is that people like that are teaching our future criminologists.
Indeed, indeed.
Academia and institutionalizing, because they are raising our future generation with that mindset of just.
There has been another. There has been another incidental occurrence which is equally of concern. As you know, the Diwali lights in Leicester were switched on.
Yes.
And every year it's done with a great deal of ceremony and a great deal of friendship. And this year I had thought the Leicester Hindu community would have the gumption, would have the spine to say, actually, we need to redress who we've got good relationships with, who actually genuinely looks after us and our well-being. But I was disappointed to see that Sir Peter Soulsby was up there on the stage doing the countdown and launching the Diwali celebrations for Leicester's Hindu community, whilst the traditional celebrations for Diwali in the area where ethnic cleansing had been inflicted is not being held. And I know that many, many people have expressed that it's a diminished sense of Diwali this year. The Navratri Garbas were attended by lesser numbers. There was an element of a depressed level of energy, although, we tried to raise the music and light and dance and joy. But it just seemed very, very duplicitous for Peter Soulsby to be standing up there, launching the Hindu Diwali celebrations, whilst at the same time being so open about the fact that he was not able to be to apply equanimity to the policing matter and the matter of hate crimes against Hindus. So it really is down to Leicester's Hindu community to work out what's going on, because their children are watching, the adults, the leaders, those people who step forward to receive garlands at every opportunity, to be feted in temples, including those politicians and indeed the police officers. We do want to have a little bit more equanimity from them. There needs to be equality. There needs to be complete transparency. And if there isn't, then we are being deceived. And the consequences of being deceived and pretending everything is okay, history shows us, has never been a positive conclusion. So I would really hope that in the spirit of Diwali, remember, Diwali, as I have behind us, is an attribute to Sri Ram, to Devi Sita and Lakshmanji. And there is a sense that Ramchandraji represents Maryada Purushottam, the highest example of what an ideal society member with all of the relationships should be. And his devotion to Satya, his devotion to not permitting those who inflict violence and hatred and illegality on innocents, on the defenseless, on the vulnerable, his commitment was absolute. And so again, I would reach out to our community and remind them that it's not all, Diwali is not all ha ha, he, mithai and, singing and dance. It's a celebration of divinity over those forces which challenge and diminish divinity. It's a celebration of courage. It's a celebration of adherence to truth, honor, dignity, satya and dharma, no matter what the odds are, even if it means that you have 14 years in exile, even if it means that you are robbed of all of your ancestral entitlements, there should still be a commitment to the standards established by Sri Ram. And so that really does require them to step up. Otherwise, in the eyes of the next generation, it does not set a good example. And I'm hoping they're beginning to realize this.
Yes, I think your message isn't just for the Leicester Hindu community. I think it applies to Hindus everywhere. Unless they stick up and stand up and make those that are in charge accountable, nothing is going to change.
Well, a democracy is about engagement. It's a wonderful opportunity for every citizen to be able to contribute for the benefit of every citizen. I am not saying to our community, do these things because you're Hindu and it's for the Hindu benefit. I'm genuinely suggesting to the community that this is for the benefit of everybody. It's for the benefit of all communities, because the issue is that there is a toxic minority, a very violent toxic minority who will damage this for everybody. And so it really is a responsibility that we shoulder for every British citizen, not just in Leicester, but elsewhere as well. So please, Leicester Hindus, British Hindus, engage with the same passion and commitment that Sri Ramji engaged with these issues, and let's establish a Ram Rajya here in Leicester.
Thank you, Panditji. Yeah, that's a very good message to the Leicester Hindus and to all Hindus listening to this video, watching this video today, because yes, we are in a democracy. Most of us are living in democracies, and we need to have our leaders accountable and, to have our back as well. So thank you.
Yeah, it's well put. And I say we're beginning to see it happen. Our youngsters are stepping up. I'm getting so many communications from our youngsters who are saying they now know where they are. They now know the challenges they face, and they also recognize the need for them to step up and engage. So that's really encouraging. I think it will be of benefit to all of our communities throughout the country. So let's look forward to the message of Diwali being spread, not just the light and the mithai and the dance being spread. And that will be a net benefit for everyone. Even something good may come out of what happened in Leicester. Thank you, Saloniji.
Thank you, Panditji, very much. Thank you, and happy Diwali.
Shubh Deepavali and Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna. Om.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.